Hi everyone, welcome. Today we'll be taking a bit of a broad look at feminism. And I can hear everyone gasping in the chat there, but which is amazing because it is just chat and you're all typing. But I've got really good ears. But I hope we don't get too many dumpster fires out of this. I have actually brought my fire extinguisher with me just in case we go down that way. But my guests today come from all over the place. Well, the UK and the US to be precise. But I'm Australian, so hopefully that covers all the important places. So without further ado, let's introduce the panel. First up, we have Julie. Julie has been a strong voice in both that's well written by me, both the atheist and feminist and LGBTQ plus communities for a while now. Her and her partner, Junk Shop Library, run a couple of channels supporting these communities and raising their voices. Becca, or as we know her on Twitter and the Tube's Danger Hissy, is a historian, LGBTQ advocate, and fanfiction writer. She has a little channel she recently started where she shares her vast knowledge of topics such as Asterix the Ghoul with us Mim. No, seriously, if you're looking for some historical pagan content, look no further than Hissy's Hideaway. Kate, Bionic Dance herself, needs no introduction as a prominent and prolific member of the and content creator for both the atheist and LGBTQ plus communities. Kate is truly a treasure to the community. So I'll skip over her and move on to our final guest. That's Katie Montgomery. Talking of a treasure to her communities, Katie is a tireless campaigner for women's rights, whether you're cis or trans. Katie has got your back. Well, unless you're the type of person who doesn't really care about women's rights, as long as you can just take pot shots at LGBTQ plus people. In that case, Katie is the sharp-witted thorn in your side. And we all hope that that turns septic.
I immediately like Katie. I feel like we're going to get on.
So how is everyone this morning?
Well, I've definitely been worse.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's midnight here and I'm 3 drinks in, so I'm good.
This is my...
I've got my 4th ready to go.
You got your 4th ready to go. Now that's organisation. I wish I was that organised.
Well, it's 10 after 6 in the evening where I am, so I'm on my 2nd Irish coffee while we're taking a poll.
Oh. So I guess I'm the youngest out of all of you, because it's 4 p.m. here.
Yeah, that's still late to have a drink. Join us. Mm-hmm. Remember, if you drink before 5 o'clock, you're not an alcoholic, you're a pirate.
That's right.
Right. Well,
it's 7 a.m. here, and if you guys really insist, I'll pour a drink.
I would not insist that you do that.
Oh my god, you do have the room, but if I want to get fucked up, I got the weed, so, you know.
Okay.
It's legal where you are, which is so
it's legal where you are, isn't it?
It is not where I am.
Yeah, it's not legal where I am.
No, it isn't here either.
Well, it's not legal here either, so... So that's not great.
Yeah.
So
we weren't
just
talking about illegal substances in countries where it is illegal.
Yeah.
So, feminism. What is it? Where did it start? What path has it taken? And where do we think it's going? Oddly enough,
how have you got?
And still an activist, I feel greatly humbled by my guests here. Because I'm thoroughly confident that they will expose my ignorance, especially on anything American, and misconceptions about anything new in the last 10 years. And I'm really looking forward to getting down to the nitty-gritties with these wonderful women. So let's start with my ignorance, shall we? Bionic Dance and Julie. It's often argued that the US feminism movement grew out of the labour movement's fight for better wages and conditions in the mill towns of Massachusetts and other parts of New England in the 1830s and 40s. There was concern that then, as there is now a pushback on women asking for the same considerations as men. Prominent activists at the time, like Angelina and Sarah Grimke, fought back against that perception and said that women had the right to speak as well. How do you... who do you feel were the guiders and instigators of feminism for you personally, and what influence have they had on your position within that movement?
Do you want me to go, or do you want to go?
I might as well go for it.
Okay, I was going to say, because yes to everything Jen just said, but I would add the suffragettes as well, and in terms of historical figures, the one that I found incredibly inspiring, and her name just went out of my head. Oh God, Kate, help me! Who went to jail so we could vote? Who was she? She was the one that the judge actually instructed the jury what to call a guilty verdict. Ooh,
I can even picture what she looks like. Me, because my memory for those whole siege things is terrible. So I don't know.
Too much pressure. Oh my God!
Help here, because I have no idea who they're talking about. Well, I do actually. I just can't remember the name either.
Susan B. Anthony. Holy!
That was who. My brain was barfing that name up, but I was like, wait, no, wasn't. Anyway, yeah. Okay, yeah, sure.
I was gonna hate myself if I forgot that for the whole thing. Okay, yeah, Susan B. Anthony. Because reading about her in history class and how brave she was, it made me realize years before I was old enough to vote that not only did I have the right to vote because of the sacrifices of women who came before and fought for that, but that it was my duty to vote, but as a woman. And so, yeah, so that's she's mine. Susan B. Anthony is one of many, but she's the big one. Go ahead, Kate. I'm sorry, Bionic. Yeah.
Either way, I don't have an actual specific person I can point to. The thing is, as I'm fond of pointing out, I was raised by hippies, right? So I spent my entire childhood knowing, well, duh, of course women are supposed to be able to vote. What are you, nuts? But it was more a matter of like higher wages and equality in the workplace and that kind of thing. Because I watched my mom and my dad doing marches when I was little and all of that stuff. So really my introduction to feminism was more about equal pay for equal work, about not being like raped all the time, all of that. So it was more like a next stage of feminism where I was really introduced to it and taught about it as a thing.
And that is kind of like the second wave of feminism, isn't it? I guess like more about work equality and wages and things.
Yeah, I think that's probably where most of us sort of got in. You know, because the vote was already had for all of us, and the basic grounds were already there, but the fight for equality in the workplace, in wages, etc., is still an ongoing issue. Sorry?
It is, yeah.
Reproductive freedom.
Reproductive freedom, thank you. Yeah, and we also don't have equal pay for equal work here. I'm sorry, Katie.
I was just going to say, we only finally got abortion rights, I guess, which comes under that, I guess, is we only got last year fully in the UK because Northern Ireland had it banned until then, which is horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my people.
But I mean, we had our versus R in 1991? Which was when they finally made trigger warning. For what I'm about to say, it was only 1991 in the UK that spousal rape was recognised as a thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
really?
So we're talking about in our lifetimes.
The UK is so
you know.
I have a note to that, just to add, in my state, this is not across the board in all of the states in the US, but in my state, spousal rape is also not a thing legally, because marriage implies consent. That's how the law is stated. Now, I will tell you this, I wouldn't try to use... It is. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's horrible because we know that spousal rape occurs. It's happened to me. I'm not talking about my current partner. Let's be very clear on that point. But, yeah, it does happen. Yeah.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
No, junk shop is lovely. But yeah, so it is something that happens, and I wouldn't want to use that blue law, that Tennessee old law in a court in a courtroom. I don't know that it would go over, but it is on the book still, and it could theoretically. So let me know if I'm wrong in the chat about that. And I think it's still on the book here.
In terms of maybe we're jumping ahead here, but particularly for abortion rights and I guess women's rights in general in the US, there's quite a lot of pressure for it to slide backwards at the moment. Maybe 5 years ago, no one would have ever considered trying that law, but now they might try it because the top courts might be more willing to allow it. I don't know, but it does feel.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right because of the appointments that have been made, like Brett Kavanaugh,
which are probably only going to get worse. So.
I mean, it's amazing that the movements for feminism started in the early 1800s, and we're still fighting some of those same things. And you see this in all fields where people are fighting for rights, whether it's rights based on race, or if you're talking about gay rights or trans rights now. Even though people look at it and go, oh no, you've won all those things. No, we haven't. The public still haven't changed for everything. Not completely. I mean, it's a lot better now. A million times better for women. And a lot better for anyone LGBTQ+. But those changes haven't happened completely, and even in law they haven't, which is so incredibly frustrating because we're talking more than 100 years. And several generations.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that irritates me is every time it comes around, the anniversary comes round of the right for women to vote. Is it too early to run?
I don't think so.
It's going to happen. You've got to do it anyway.
The right of upper class white women to vote.
That's fair. That's a fair distinction.
Yeah.
Well,
it was very much in that way. I mean,
there's something I think that any movement that is working toward equality should have as its goal making our differences unremarkable.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
But the thing is, I do think that a lot of tactics used by some of feminism's more vocal advocates often makes a lot of people feel like the differences are being magnified instead. If that makes sense.
I'll be really
makes
honest.
sense.
Yeah, it does.
Really honest, especially in the UK, because that's my area of expertise on this particular subject. Especially in the UK, white women threw non-white women under the bus to get the vote. Rich women threw working class women under the bus to get the vote.
Well, yeah,
so I guess I don't know a lot about voting in the UK. Are there still people not allowed?
No, I mean,
in the UK. Yeah,
I think even prisoners have got the vote now, haven't they?
Prisoners have got the vote, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, your suffrage movement started in 1860 in the UK, and then continued to develop into the feminist movement in general. But, I mean, your time frame was kind of ridiculous because it wasn't until 1918 that women actually got the vote.
Yeah, but they only got it because they all kicked off after the husbands came back from the war and decided they didn't want to go back to the kitchen.
Pretty much, and but at the time they also allowed for there was also the changes to allow all men to vote, because not even all men could vote before then either. You had to be of a certain class to actually vote, so that was ridiculous. But when they brought in the laws, men at the age of 20, all men at 21 got the vote, and women had to wait until they turned 30. So you weren't even considered equal, even though you were given the vote. That just absolutely blows my mind. So it wasn't until 1928, so another 10 years, it was 10 years because it was 1918 when you got the vote. So 10 years later, when they finally made the voting age the same for women as men. So,
our voting age got lowered because of Vietnam. That was basically it was 21 for everybody, and then Vietnam happened, and the average age of soldiers fighting in Vietnam was 19. And so the argument was made that if you're old enough to die for your country, you should have a say in who runs it.
Which is a fair argument. Yeah. Which is a fair argument. But you've got as early sort of, I want to say 1880. Is it 1880 or 81, where landowning women have got the right to vote in certain parts of Britain.
Because voting was very much prejudiced on how much money you had, more so than your gender.
It always was, and it was always an upper class thing. I mean, going back to ancient Greece, call it a democracy all you like, it's not a democracy if the only people voting are the rich upper classes.
Yeah.
No, you're very right, and even here, like the people love. We love to worship our Constitution, and but in the preamble, when it says all men are created equal, it's not even just all men; it's all white landowning men. And so the argument has been made from feminists before that the Constitution barely applies to us because we're mentioned so rarely in it, except for the 18th or 19th Amendment. Help me out, Bionic Dams. The one that gave us the vote.
I don't know. I don't know the
Constitution. When did that actually happen, Julie?
I want to say 1918, and I think it was the 19th Amendment. Yeah, and I think it happened in 1918, but I might.
So I compare what happened with you guys to us. Like, women first got the vote in Australia in 1902. So basically, just after Federation, women got the vote in Australia. In 1921, the first woman was elected to Parliament in Australia, and that was Edith Cowan, and she was a pioneer of feminism within Australia. So we actually had a woman in Parliament before women got this vote at the same age in the UK. It boggles my mind how long it is taken in some places for the movement to move forward and actually get somewhere, which is just like, I realise that the establishment is resistant to change. People in general are resistant to change, which does make any form of change you want a lot harder. And the more conservative your environment is, the harder it is to get that change, which is a problem.
I think as well, we can't discount the fact that the way women have historically got the vote is by performing masculinity.
Oh, yes.
By taking on the roles of men, usually in a time of crisis, that's how the barrier's been broken.
In some ways, but then in the U.S., we saw in the 50s, we saw this huge. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just adding, over here in the 50s, we saw this huge backlash against that because all of the men came back, the ones who came back from World War II, and women were working in factories. We've been testing planes. A lot of those women test pilots died testing planes for the war effort, and these guys came back and they wanted their jobs back, and our society basically told women as a whole, we're not even, this is when homosexuality was still illegal everywhere in the U.S., pretty much, as far as I know.
Most of the world, really.
And horrible thing. Anyway, sorry, not to get off on that, on a tangent, but they were basically told, hey honey, get your ass back in the kitchen.
So,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, that tangent kind of comes into it too, because as feminism has regressed, those sort of things have also come under the... Well, not for all feminists, but for the majority of feminists, the fight for gay rights and trans rights has also come under the wing of feminism. This is what most people don't get. That,
I agree.
That feminism isn't just about rights for women. It is an egalitarian movement at its core for the majority of feminists.
I think
I notice
I said for the majority, not all. There are certainly feminists who would love to line men up and shoot them.
But I think,
and of course, you also get like all the TERFs and that sort of thing, where it's like,
if you just take the principles and premises of feminism and just apply them consistently, then you end up at LGBT rights, and you end up at equality for other groups of people. That's like
you end up with intersectional feminism.
The problem is that historically, even feminists didn't apply them consistently.
No, for sure,
and many still don't. It's very true. You've got your Germaine Greers and that in the world. And
actually,
I am very, very sorry we have Germaine Greer in the world. I would like to apologise on the part of all feminists in Australia for Germaine Greer.
I have no idea who that is.
I don't either. It's just her tone made me laugh. That was not a knowing laugh. It was just Jen's tone. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to Google Germaine Greer later.
We gave America Ken Ham and we gave the UK Germaine Greer.
Okay. Yeah, you can have Ham back, by the way.
Absolutely.
I'm sure Katie's going to tell me we can have Germaine Greer back as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here though, Hissy makes a great point, and Jim made a great point, and actually Kate and Katie too. Like you're right. It all comes together because. Especially in the U.S., like women's rights also happened kind of with and alongside the civil rights movement. So those two groups came together there, and then of course later, feminism absolutely played a role in LGBTQ rights. As much as, and we're still fighting so hard on that front. I know that at least when Junk Shop and I got married in 2015. It was legal, and y'all can make fun of this because it's true, and I don't blame you. In the state of Tennessee, it was legal to marry your first cousin, but two same-sex people could not get married. It's the year that we got married.
Yeah.
That's the thing with so many of these, so many of these arguments, the reasons behind them tend to be kind of emotional, knee-jerk reactions to things you think are weird.
There's no rational argument against gay marriage. There's no informed.
Right, but I mean that's my point, though, is that you look at first cousins and you go, well, whatever, they're straight. But you look at two men or two women, it's like, whoa, that's just really weird because they're both wrong. I mean that's the real problem, is getting past that knee-jerk emotional reaction to something. Now I have a number of friends where, given the chance, they would probably have sex for money if it was well regulated, kept safe, had a lot of safeguards, all of that stuff. And I cannot think of an argument against prostitution that isn't emotional or religious, provided everything's safe. I can't come up with one.
I think that having prostitution is always going to be, even in a completely safe environment, is going to be largely women selling themselves to men, because that's
okay. But if you're
it's their choice, isn't it?
Okay, but
no, that's fine. I'm not arguing this. I'm saying, but that is always going to be the thing. And in having this dynamic of women selling things to men, that encourages this societal. Women are part of their value is in what they can sell of their body to men. Like, there is some.
I have 2 points. I have 2 points to make, and I would like to make these points. First of all, the knee-jerk reaction against same-sex relationships is not ingrained. It is taught. It is the result of a couple of thousand years of religious dogma.
Oh, agreed.
That's what it is.
I mean, I remember chanting in my head, I like boys, I like boys, I like boys when I was 12. Because I was terrible. I thought I'd go to hell if I liked girls. I'm sorry, Hissy, go ahead.
Also, as someone not really religious, I can have a less biased perspective on that, but go on.
Secondly, on the point of prostitution, if you think that women who engage in prostitution are selling their bodies, but men who go to work down mines or anywhere else aren't, your problem is not with labour. It's a moralistic, and it's a double standard.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm not suggesting that sex work isn't work. I think it is. It's just it's a different traditionally, but conceptually it's the same. Like you're saying, I totally agree.
All of our traditions in the West are essentially Christian in basis. Yeah. The monotheistic Abrahamic religion that is at its core anti-female.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think, but the point I was just making is that in, say, a position like like what I do, engineer, there's no reason why it can't be 50-50 men and women. And if we got rid of sexism, it would be. But I think there's some kind of, I'm theorizing here, there's some kind of biological component to who wants sex and the dynamic between who can provide it and who, this kind of thing.
I don't think there is.
No? Okay.
I mean, if you really think about it, if there's a market for something and people have it and are willing to sell it and other people are willing to pay for it, why not let them?
It's an interesting point because, historically, the sex workers have largely been women and the patrons largely men, and cishet women and men. And so would that change if it were more culturally accepted? That's an interesting thing, and I don't know that we can speculate.
How many straight women would go to a male prostitute, do you think, if it was completely legal?
I don't know. Maybe once during my divorce, it was taken forever, and it got rough there for a few months.
I think, in all honesty, most straight women would rather please themselves than try and find somebody else who's actually physically capable of pleasing them. I mean, getting a guy who's actually good enough to get you off in the first place is hard enough.
Not hard enough. I see what you did there.
You could see the reviews on their site. It'd be like 4 stars. This person was pretty good. Didn't have to get a refund. Like whatever. If you could rate people, but then that opens up all kinds of other weird things.
But people do that now, don't they? Anyway, doesn't Tinder have a rating system?
Oh, does it?
I don't know. I stopped dating. Luckily, I don't have to date anymore.
Dating kind of sucks.
It's entirely cultural.
I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe I just have terrible taste in women, but the dykes I've been out with have been so universally horrible. I don't know.
I hate to hear that.
But well, let's put it this way. Maybe I think it's decide that I don't need Tank Girl anymore, because Tank Girl in the real world comes with issues. Tank Girl in the real world is usually an addict. Stay away. That's all there is.
I can actually respect that.
I'm just saying. I gotta find that sort of femdyke sort of Pollyanna type, I guess, because clearly looking for the punk chick ain't working for me.
No, and I was always looking for the goth chick because I was one, and that's speaking as one, that's a whole bag of crazy.
Right don't get me started. I spent 10 years in the sea-goth scene, and believe me, I know.
God damn it. Well, we all goth.
Are we undermining feminism now at this point? What are we doing?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I thought we were going to spend more time talking about modern feminism, like present-day feminism.
I was getting there, so...
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I derailed that with history. That was my bad.
So let's pull it back in a bit. Why don't we discuss from second wave feminism on, and look at where feminism was and is going to, because I want to get into intersectional feminism. That sounded wrong, but you know what I mean. I want to get into discussing intersectional feminism, not suddenly become an intersectional feminist, because I am an intersectional feminist. So.
If your feminism's not intersectional, you're not a feminist.
I agree with you entirely.
In this day and age, if you're not intersectional, you're not feminist.
Yeah,
there was an excuse for it in the first wave of didn't know any better, but we do know better.
But even the second wave, people didn't know better.
I think it's an irrational position to not be intersectional, because you're just applying the same principles consistently. It's just once you understand power dynamics between men and women and how sexism is created, like lots of that applies to all of the other oppression dynamics.
Absolutely.
And if you're not prepared to accept that there's other aspects of that leading into other areas of oppression, then you are not following the tenets of feminism, because the basic underlying tenets.
Because what you're saying is, if you're saying I'm not intersectional, you're saying I'm not applying my own worldview consistently. You're just saying I'm completely aware of this whole structure and the understanding and the patriarchy and everything, and someone else is like, cool, it also applies here, and you're like, don't care.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Which is basically the reaction that TERFs have.
What exactly are the tenets of feminism today? Because you do have the line up all the men and have them shot down with the phallacracy types, and then you have the folks like me who are just going, let's just make sure that when we're looking at our differences, sex doesn't affect things in undue ways, in unwelcome ways.
Yeah.
Let's make that unremarkable about ourselves when it comes to like jobs and things like that.
I would say
what are the tenets?
I would say a core tenet of feminism is bodily autonomy. I think that's key to lots of things to do with lots of the different parts of feminism, like abortion rights and consent, and all of that is based on the core of bodily autonomy. And I think that extends into things like LGBT rights as well.
And access to contraception, because if we don't have control over our own biology, we have no control over anything.
Exactly, and that's what's often weaponized so much against women historically, is control over their body through sex and childbirth and abortion and things like that.
And that's still happening. Speaking as somebody who has, we've got Choices of Memphis, and we've got one Planned Parenthood here that now serves 3 states. And we recently had a young lady drive all the way from Texas. So she put this on the internet. This isn't like secret information or anything. On the Choices website. And because Texas, the governor there, was trying to use the pandemic to shut down abortion clinics, and did so successfully for a while. It's like,
absolutely
an asshole.
Evil that is. He's not just a dickhead. It's evil to
it's evil.
People access to abortion in a pandemic. It's someone access to like it's an immediate vital issue to deal with.
Yeah. It is, and I know that for me, when I was a broke-ass college student for most of my young adulthood, like, I went to Planned Parenthood to avoid getting pregnant. That's where I got my cheap contraception from, and that's where I got condoms and the pill from, and it was great.
I can't relate. In that my entire life in the UK, contraception's free. Everything but the morning after pill is free here.
God, it's hard to even get the legal Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can go to my doctor and I've got the implant, or I can get the pill, as long as it's, suitable for me medically. Universities, chemists, doctors, like sexual health clinics will give out free condoms, no questions asked. Free lube, male and female condoms. Dental dams, you name it. If they've got it, they'll give it out.
Good.
Free of charge, no questions asked. And most of the time they won't even ask your age. As long as you seem like you are competent and you know what you're asking for, they will.
Condoms should even be given to incompetent people. You don't
I was 13 the first time I got the implant in my arm. I was not even thinking about sex. I got it for a totally different reason. But they didn't even question it.
Me too.
The closest they came was, is it possible you're pregnant? And I sat there in my Catholic school uniform after school at this appointment going, no angels have been to see me.
Well, I'm using the best birth control method there is, lesbianism. So I'm just saying, these are things I never really thought about, because I knew from an early age there was no way in hell I wanted a boy. So I don't know. I mean, believe me, I've heard all about it from all of my straight friends, and my parents knew a long time ago that it was never going to be an issue. So, yeah, this is just a blind spot for me, I guess.
No, it's okay. I once said to a friend of mine who was a lesbian, I was like, damn it, I fell in love with somebody who produces semen. And it's just because, but no, there is nothing. I mean, I think it's awesome that you knew who you were from an early age, And I think most of us do.
Oh, that's the thing. Is, so many people have to hide it. So many people have to go, well, my parents are raging Catholics, so I have to hide who I am all the time. And I mean, there are definitely benefits to being raised by hippies. There's also downsides like the diet they want you to eat, but other than that, there's still some pretty good sides.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, and the music is horrid.
Knowing who you are is easy. Accepting who you are is the hard bit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, I mean, having the parents that are supportive helps.
Oh, definitely.
It does. And
yeah.
And mine are because they don't really understand any of this newfangled stuff. What they would consider newfangled stuff,
Newfangled stuff.
Hey, knock, knock, knock. Ancient Greece would like a word with you.
I know. It's like, yes, trans people have always existed, Mom and Dad. They're 77 and Catholic and very set in their set in their minds, and they just don't get it. And they don't get it because they're both cis het people. It's hard to, like, they accept that people are gay and that's not their choice. I have yet to see them make the jump to, yes, trans people exist and it's fine.
It never
I'm working on it.
It amazes me when people make comments like, "Oh, the trans people suddenly burst on the scene 5 years ago." I'm like,
"Yeah,
you
no.
What cupboard were you living in?"
Came out of the closet that long ago. And that's the thing with a lot of the people who object to things like feminism and LGBT rights and all of that stuff. They knew it was there all the time. They just wanted it kept in the closet, swept under the rug. They don't want to have to see it and know about it and deal with it in their own lives. They want everyone to just disappear.
I encounter people on Twitter quite a lot who are of various levels of competence, and there are genuinely people who genuinely think trans people are new, as in, like, in the last 5 years. I've encountered people like that all the time.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Honestly, maybe as many as one a fortnight. I'll encounter someone who thinks, like, I met one person who genuinely thought Obama had introduced trans people, like, it's some initiative that he had done. And it, what the fuck? There are people who are trolling you and taking you for a ride, and you can always look out from the serious people. And, like, I've gone in DMs with people before and been like, I know we've disagreed on everything, but do you honestly think that Caitlyn Jenner was the first trans person? Because you've come to this.
Did you never read Sophocles? Sorry, that's not a fair question because lots of people haven't read Sophocles. I just was an English teacher for a long time, but god damn it, that's insane. I mean, I get what you're saying.
No, but it happens all the time, Julie. It really does.
Yeah.
It is amazing how many people are so ignorant of everything around them. But
I mean, I heard about Renee Richards, the tennis player. I mean, back when like trans people were this bizarre oddity, I even knew about. Like, I don't think my age was even the double digits when I first heard about Renee Richards.
Yeah,
and then the same, like, I've talked to people as well before, but they'll think trans people are some new thing, and they'll be like, "You've seen the film Ace Ventura, right?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, there's a horrible trans person in it." I'm like. Everyone knew they were then, and it was like the worst film ever. Don't watch it.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
They still think that even though they've got this concept in their mind of, it's a man pretending to be a woman or whatever, they haven't linked that with, trans people are people with blue hair or whatever. They're not even in their mind. They haven't linked them as the same concept because their reaction for both is just purely gut reaction. They have no
Hollywood has a lot to answer for that in the fact that they spend an awful lot of time portraying trans people as the villains.
There is an entire area of literature and media studies that explores queer coding and villain characters.
One trans character that was portrayed as good. Wait, Better Than Chocolate. There was a... yes! That's the only one I can think of.
I'm not a fucking drag queen. Yes! I love that movie.
There's a good movie that... what's her face was totally hot in it. Short hair, blonde. What the hell's her name? I don't remember.
I can't think of her name right now either, but she is so hot. She's been in so much TV.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the character's name because I'm aware that it was adopted into a term that's now considered a slur. But you can go all the way back to Ovid and
I'm
find
sorry, is it?
characters.
So
No,
what?
there's been transcriptions
how
and
is-
things for ages.
Sorry, is what's her name a slur? Because I did not know, and I would like to know if that's the case.
No,
It's alright, you can say it.
You can say it.
I'm trying to make sure I pronounce it right. Hermaphroditus.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, so you're talking classical.
Yeah, which is why being trans is not new. I insist, but being
definitely
trans
not.
is
I mean,
not new.
there was a
I'll always talk classical. Come on,
who
Jen.
was was it a Greek or a Roman ruler who used to wander around the
this
street?
Roman. Yeah, he was like from the
Caligula?
Yes, Caligula. Yeah, yeah, and he did
I
loads
mean,
of
a lot of that was propaganda, but yeah.
But I
Elagabalus,
it's all through history, and every culture. So it's not something new, and we've gone way off the track.
Oh, okay.
Not that I mind that. That's fine because it's all
Another
adjacent to intersectional. So
I was going to say I've got another tenant.
Christina Fox. That was the name of the actress. Christina
Thank
Fox.
you. Thank
Yes.
you, Christina Knox. Okay, another tenet of feminism. Go, Katie.
So I think autonomy of sexuality is an important tenet of feminism.
Yeah, and I would add sexual equality, like gender and sexual equality across the board, because like feminists who are like the separatists, they want everything separate from the men. Like back in the 60s, there were women like this, and there probably are today.
In the UK, and they are.
Who are like have no need for men or their issues and don't care and want them. It's like that's wrong. That's like if we want equality, it has to be for the guys too. I mean, and everybody in between.
There's actually one area where I think, I mean, maybe most of you will agree with me on this. I thought people would really, really disagree. But when I said before that I think an equality movement like this should make our differences unremarkable, I meant it. And when I saw, like, on the debate stage recently, what's her face, Amy Klobuchar, constantly harping on it's time for a woman, it's time for a woman, it's time for a woman. I was like, you're really going to turn a lot of people off by saying that.
Kind of tokenism if you push it too hard.
Yeah, and you get like others that I've been seeing, like there's these memes that have been going around, hey, you see every country that's handling COVID-19 the best, well, guess who's in charge? It's a woman. And I'm like, I'm totally okay with all of that, but at the same time, I suspect that there are people out there who are going to look at that and go, what, are you saying like men suck all over the place over here? Where they're going to start taking it as a personal affront, where it's not taking our differences and making them unremarkable, but rather saying, look at how much better we are than you. And I don't know if that's going to do actual feminism any favors, is what I'm saying.
As the working class Brit, can I give the Americans in the stream and in the audience a bit of advice?
You do
not want a female president no matter what.
Yeah,
you do not want a woman regardless of policies.
Oh, because you get
Margaret. You know what happens when you get a woman regardless of policies?
Maggie
you
Thatcher?
get Maggie Thatcher and Theresa fucking May. That's what you get.
You get some
a lot of the problem with that
Diane Abbott.
Well, you might have gotten Sarah Palin if we
got that.
That's the unbelievable person.
Okay.
Well, I can't believe that she's a real thing.
So I will say nuance, but yes, time for a woman, but it has to be the right woman.
Yeah,
thank you.
Is anyone who's not Margaret Thatcher?
You're going to have two problems with that. Is in that to get to that position of a woman being either prime minister or president in the case of the US, you need somebody. You're going to need a woman who's being one of the guys. And at that point, you may as well have one of the guys, and that becomes a problem.
Well, here's the thing, though. Along those lines, I really liked the policies of Tulsi Gabbard. She sounded like a female Bernie Sanders. And she'd been in the military, which you'd think would appeal to a lot of those guys who think men should be men and all of that. So, I mean, it sounds to me like she would have been perfect for the job.
Yeah. Well, a lot of...
No, she's going to emasculate them.
Yeah, well, and that is a problem in the U.S. with feminism, and let me know if you disagree, Bionic, because but like women, I'm I'm the only out of school like working adult woman in my family who doesn't have children. The rest are all stay-at-home moms, and that's fine. They haven't always been stay-at-home moms. They've worked on other, but that's their choice. And yet they will not identify as feminists. In fact, they think that all feminists hate them because they're stay-at-home moms. And as much as I try and disabuse women in my own family who know and love me of this notion, they don't get over it. They're just like, no, feminists hate women like me, and I can't jump on that bandwagon. And I'm like, it's not a fucking bandwagon. It's to allow you to choose what you want and me to choose what I want.
Yeah, if your choice is to be a stay-at-home mom, if you want to be barefoot and pregnant all day, go for it.
That's do it. That's your business.
But that's
the core of feminism, isn't it? Choice.
Yes, exactly.
No matter what your choice is, it has to be your choice.
I think that this is a good propaganda point that anti-feminists have managed to push, because certainly, like in the second wave of feminism, there was kind of this push against stereotypical femininity, like, you know, makeup is just for men, heels are just for men, you know, being pregnant is just for men, cooking is just for men. All of these things you need to stop doing because they're just for men, and it's bad, and it's dragging all women down, and you're creating the stereotype and you're perpetuating it. And that is a view that a lot of people have, and it is definitely a very like turfy view. It's quite you can argue to that point from radical feminism. And I think that it's very easy for people who are opposed to the whole concept of women's equality to just say, those people over there, they call themselves feminists, and they don't want you to even be able to have kids. They don't even want you to be able to cook a meal for your husband. They don't even want you to be able to wear makeup. And then you're like, well, I like makeup. I want to have kids. So that means
I like cooking.
Well, and a lot of those things go cross back and forth over the barrier. I mean, you get a lot of those manly men, the ones who like to drink beer and shoot guns, who are losing it because there's like young guys who are doing, when they're like surprised or laughed, because this
it's too feminine.
Yes, so I mean, it's
gay, like
yeah, it across the board. It's like people love their strongly defined divisions and categories. These are men,
false dichotomy.
Never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, it's truly
absolutely. And honestly, I wish Junk Shop was on this stream right now, like just for this moment, because they could speak to that. I'm not going to speak for them, but seriously, wow.
Oh, sorry.
There's this whole thing as well that this feeds into this concept of passing privilege. Now, I don't care whether it's race, sex, sexuality, gender. There's no such thing as passing privilege. All that is shoving you back into someone else's definition of who you are.
Yes.
I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I guess there's two views of it. I agree with the side that the concept of it is like inherently bullshit, because you have to accept that these bullshit social categories which oppress people exist in order to agree that passing privilege is a thing. However, like as a trans person, if you look like a woman, your life is easier. That's just a fact. If people read you they treat you one way. If they read you as, oh, you're a trans woman but you're trying your best, then they'll treat you another way. And if they just read you as a cis woman, they treat you like staggeringly differently. And you know, I've been at the various stages, and you can really feel it in every interaction that you get with people. But there is
it's a real shock in your personal life if you've moved on to experience the next stage, and all of a sudden you encounter somebody who treats you at the stage behind that. It's actually a complete culture shock for you.
But the impact it has on you, I'm bi in what is a straight passing relationship. And yes, I'm treated differently in that relationship. But you know what? It's still a problem.
It is.
It's still a problem, because when I say I'm bi, people immediately look at me and go, well, what does your husband think? The fuck's it got to do with my husband? It's my sexuality.
Yeah. And he doesn't own it, and he knows that.
Well, there's also that you're bisexual, you're also promiscuous as hell. A lot of people
Oh,
say,
okay.
"Oh, you're bisexual. Well, then you must be having sex with someone of each sex every night." You know, like they think that being bisexual doesn't mean you can be in a committed, like monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
And they hit you up to be the unicorn in their threesome all the fucking time, and if you're not like that,
I could tell you stories about being granted, speaking as someone who's usually not hit on in person. I get it a lot online, but not in person. I don't know what the difference is, but the point is that I was at a party with a bunch of my neighbors at one point, and my actual literal downstairs neighbors were there, and they were drunk, and she kept trying to get me to kiss her, and I was like, my gosh, is her husband going to deck me for this? But I look, and he's looking at us with this like weird grin on his face. And the next thing I know, they're like, hey, you want to get out of here? And I was like, am I being offered a threesome with a straight couple?
you were. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a little weird, especially since they knew perfectly damn well that I'm a lesbian. So, yeah.
They just that's a very oh, maybe I was steering off a bit, but like a sort of generic straight couple thing to think like, oh, we can just convince this lesbian to join in, like, oh,
I mean, maybe he just wanted to watch as I did his wife. I don't know, but still.
And maybe, and also no kink shaming, because some people are into that, and that's fine. But don't just randomly hit on somebody because you know they're into going down on women. Like, chill.
Listen, the entire point of kink is that you actively negotiate it before you go there.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You're not actively negotiating it, it's not kink.
And speaking as someone who's starting to suspect she might just be an ace, I was not into it.
I understand. I'm a bit dimmy. I tend to fall for one person. I think polyamory is fine as long as everybody's informed and knows everything, and there's a lot of communication, and no one, because you're not cheating if everybody's honestly informed. That's not cheating.
Having said that, if you're the kind of person who gets jealous, polyamory is probably not for you.
Polyamory can be rough, yeah. But it's but yeah, I found out that it wasn't for me by giving it a shot. I gave it an honest shot, and in a previous relationship, and it's not for me. I don't like
polyamorous people. I do have one objection to polyamory, and that's no having seconds till the rest of us have had first. Thanks.
That's always true, though. That should always be true.
Because
someone always has to have seconds.
I was joking.
Poly people, the other poly people, and mono people need to stay other mono people, because otherwise it comes back. So,
yeah, it can be taxing and weird, but you know, like yeah. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to tell tales out of school.
So feminism, then.
Feminism.
Another tenet. Feminism. I think the absolute freedom of expression. So a woman can dress like a woman or like a man or like anything, and there is no such thing as dressing like a woman or dressing like a man, and it's the same for men and women and non-binary people and everyone. Whatever you wear, you're still yourself, and you shouldn't be judged for it.
Thank you. I love that so much, because there are things that my spouse would like to wear in public, and again, not telling tales out of school, but in this case, but that where we live would legit likely get his ass kicked. Their ass kicked. Sorry, we just discovered this, so I'm still working through it. Anyway, I'm still changing the pronouns in my head. Anyway, but yeah, there's stuff that they wear that and would love to like go and hang out in a public place and be perfectly comfortable, but it's not safe, and that is so unfortunate, because when I go out in jeans and a t-shirt, nobody looks at me like I'm doing anything weird.
Yeah.
You know, and
also, can I point out, my husband has banging legs. Why can't he wear a skirt if he wants?
Yeah, and heels.
But does he want to, Hissy?
Well, I'm sure he could get away with
If he wants to,
he could get away with a kilt. He could.
I don't know
Even in Tennessee, he could get away with a kilt. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, you're in England. You can wear a kilt.
I wonder, though. I mean, like, we have over the centuries, millennia, whatever, definitely come up with styles of clothing that tend to be looked at as masculine or feminine. And then you
started out as
and then you get people. Well, But you get people who say that they're like in every possible way they're like the same gender as their sex, and yet they love wearing clothing that is for the other gender according to society. If we have complete and total equality and all that, where does that leave them? I mean, like how does
That's
that?
a good question.
What's the problem? I think that there are some
not a problem.
There are some people who wear like cross-gender clothes because they think it looks nice. They just like the style. They just like their expression. I think in
They're
a
cheaper, they're better, more hard wearing, they're more comfortable.
whatever your reason, literally, even if it's just like I like the shape, whatever, it doesn't matter. In a sexism-free world, there will be men wearing women's clothes and women wearing men's clothes, and that's fine. But then there's also like there's some part of it going back to like sex and fetish stuff is there's some kind of taboo crossing going on, and there's some kind of hierarchy thing going on which is more difficult to unpack that maybe wouldn't exist in a sexism free world. But I think in our equality place,
it was that part that I was wondering about, though. I'm so totally blanking on the actor's name. Very prominent stand-up guy, British.
Eddie Izzard?
Thank you. Yes.
That's it.
Like I'm thinking if we had that sexism-free world, what would he wear?
Whatever he wanted.
Knowing Eddie Izzard, he'd find some way of getting himself on the papers.
I'm just saying, is if part of why he quote unquote cross-dresses is to break that taboo barrier, and then the barrier is taken away, what next?
Well, I can say this, and that's a good point. But I saw Eddie Izzard comes to Memphis every once in a blue moon, and he came here and did a show at the Orpheum a couple of years ago, and a dear friend of mine at work got us tickets, and we all went, and it was fantastic. And he actually, for the first time that I've ever heard him say this, he used the word, he used transgender rather than transvestite. And that was the first time I ever
identified as non-binary now, hasn't he?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry.
He used to say transvestite. That was like his thing when I first with him.
Yeah, me too. And then he well, I keep saying he. Eddie Izzard said gender fluidity as well, which was
he's gender.
Also looked really good. God damn.
Yeah.
He'd been swimming and the legs were just to die. I was like, God damn, I will never look that good in heels.
I mean, I only bring it up as an intellectual thing because I like to think about like what if this, if not that, and all of those. It's like it's not important to me in any way. I'm just curious.
I think because I often get this argument from gender critical feminists like TERFs, I guess, is that they often think that being trans, the entire spectrum of trans people, is if we did eliminate sexism, they wouldn't exist at all. They honestly believe that. Lots of them do. And they think that
they do.
Just about changing your clothes, just about changing what makeup you wear and stuff.
That makes no sense.
This is false. Like, it's just objectively false, I would say. Well, not objectively,
on its face.
Axiomatically false?
Sexism, if we eradicated sexism, there would still be trans people, and people would still medically transition. People don't medically transition because they want to look better in a dress. Like, that's just completely nonsense. But there are some people who are somewhere along this. Like, being trans isn't a black and white thing. It's like everything. There's some kind of grey area, and there are some people where some kind of gender expression might be enough to make them not feel like they need to medically transition, and some people need to medically transition, and that's fine. But in our sexism-free world, you would still get trans people, but maybe some of them who currently don't need to medically transition wouldn't feel the need to do anything. And I think that's an interesting point. And then it's the same with the fetish thing. There are definitely people who get off to the idea of cross-dressing, and they couldn't exist in the sexism-free world because that wouldn't be a thing. I
get you.
I
wouldn't exist.
Someone recently about bathrooms and trans women specifically, because they were talking about trans women. Like I was asking them, what are you picturing anyone doing in the bathroom other than going to the bathroom, washing and leaving? You know, because I mean, I know enough trans folk of various I'm not looking for denominations, gradations, whatever, and in various stages of transition. I've seen what you have to do to transition, and I'm thinking no one would go through all of that just to go into the bathroom and start like exposing themselves or harassing anyone sexually. Who the hell would
you know what would happen if you went into any women's bathroom and did something like that? Immediately, the 4 women in there doing their lipstick and the 2 in the cubicles would jump on you and probably hit you with their handbags if you were lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are not getting away with that shit.
No one in the U.S. gets assaulted in bathrooms except for by usually straight men. And I'm not trying to vilify men here, but honestly, like, I have never felt unsafe in a woman's restroom. Ever.
I've run to the women's restroom when I felt unsafe somewhere.
Yeah,
oh my gosh! In the women's restroom.
And the reality is, any woman who is in danger of anybody in a bathroom, it's not going to be the trans woman who comes in there, because the trans woman is invariably more afraid of the cis women in the bathroom than they are of them. And secondly, if some guy wants to get into a women's restroom and get to the women in there, they're not going to pretend to be a woman to do it. They're going to dress up as a janitor and put on overalls or something like that.
Anything. They're going to walk in there and they're going to overpower people. Yeah. That's how sexual assault and rape works.
Absolutely.
You often, when you talk to transphobes, they'll often say, "Oh, it never happens," and they'll send you links, and they'll often send you links of either a trans person who has done something horrible. Some trans people are shit people. Some trans people have sexually assaulted people. That's a fact. Trans people are normal people, and normal people are shit sometimes. But although they go on about it so much, like, this is the challenge to any transphobes.
They really have to cherry pick though to find their pick.
Is ever in the history of recorded humans a cis man pretended to be a trans woman to assault someone in the bathroom? Like, I don't care about trans women that have assaulted people in bathrooms, and I don't care about cis men who have assaulted people in bathrooms and then afterwards made up some excuse in court in order to try and blag it, which has never once worked in any court, by the way. Has anyone actually pretended to be a trans woman in advance? Because it's one of their core arguments. And like in the UK, we've had self-ID on spaces for 10 years now. So why hasn't it happened? Sorry, I'm ranting about trans stuff. Steer it away from me.
No, it's fine. No, we're on this topic anyway.
Open a can of worms, perhaps we ought not to touch, but do we want to talk about sports?
Yeah, I do.
Are we turning this into a trans issues video, are we?
Look at me. What interest do you think I have in sports? Look at me.
I have no interest in playing sports or watching sports.
Everybody type.
Unless you're talking about darts or watching the Wimbledon final.
The whole thing with the sports thing is
an argument on both sides, and
the sports thing is just something that the TERFs and the religious right and the gender criticals can point at, which creates an emotional response in the public and can help them and they feel can help them in their argument. In the long term, I don't think it will, because the science is very two-sided in a sense, and ultimately I think it's going to come down to inclusion is definitely the better way to go, even if there has to be flexible rules to enable that. And I've argued this so many times with so many people. I'm like, okay, so your biggest fear is that some trans woman who transitioned later in life is going to be stronger than a cis woman of a similar size. I think that's probably unlikely. But even if it was proven that that was the case, even if all the scientific evidence shows that that was the case, you can solve that by handicapping the trans woman by saying you have to compete at 5 kilograms heavier than you actually are. Piece of cake.
Yeah. I mean,
problem solved.
Somebody has done any kind of hormone replacement therapy,
sports separated by sex or by gender or whatever, we could always just have weight classes, and to hell with whatever you're stashed in your shorts.
Well, I would pay money to see you set up a darts league in which the players are graded by weight.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying though is that if the idea is, as I think it should be, to make our differences unremarkable. And if it is, generally speaking, that there will be people who are bigger and stronger versus smaller and weaker and all that stuff, and it's more of a climate versus weather kind of thing, like a general trend versus individual data points. I think that if we were to set up a sex blind, gender blind set of sports based on like weight categories or whatever, based on purely physical like ability kind of thing, it might go easier on everybody.
Yeah, but you're not going to get this. What you're talking about is putting handicaps in professional sports, and at some level, this is the ideal way to have sports. Putting handicaps in place for all professional sports, but no one is ever going to do it because the whole point of professional sports is to make fucking money.
They do it in horse racing.
Yeah, they do it in some.
Jockeying and not. We've got, what's her name? Is it Ruby? She always races in the national. Always. She's been in the national for the last 3 years. She's a female jockey. She's the only one, but the point is she's not being judged on any basis that the men in her sport are not being judged on. She's being judged on the same basis. Now, someone please explain to me why snooker, darts, pool are split on sex lines.
That doesn't make any sense. It's not a soccer sense.
There is, exactly. So even chess has a women's league, and there's some evidence for chess. Actually, it's quite interesting. I could recommend a video which is by Sean, who's the Skull guy, who he did a video on categories in chess, and they found using some blind studies that women perform less well when they think they're playing against men, and sexism is really key. And it's not just in chess, but the fact that it's present in chess shows that it's probably present in all sports, and even just the idea that sexism is around you makes you perform worse. And they did that by having women play against an anonymous player, and they just randomly told them if they're a man or a woman, and they usually performed at their level when they were told the other person was a woman, regardless of what they were, and they performed below their level when they were told it's a man, regardless.
Similar studies have shown
a lot of virtual reality and a lot of virtual reality sports. It's really easy to hide who and what you are, and it might be interesting to play against people that way, where completely gender neutral avatar, no ability to voice chat, and you just play the game and see what happens. I don't know.
So there are in esports particularly, there's quite a lot of probably in all sports, but there's a lot of particularly homophobia and sexism in lots of esports. I'm not an expert, someone's welcome to shoot me down, but
I also wonder, how has nobody ever decided that chess is feminist propaganda because the queen is the most powerful piece? I'm surprised I've never seen that come up, but it seems like the kind of thing someone would have said, no, you have to swap the king and the queen. The queen's the vulnerable one, all of that.
The king is always the most vulnerable character on a battlefield, and chess was designed to teach.
I know, but I'm surprised some shouter head,
Sure they have.
Now we're going to have to go looking for that at some point.
I bet that exists.
To back up Katie's point, a lot of studies have been done on same gender education, and particularly right around adolescence. So if you have girls in a co-ed school, they tend to perform worse than if they're in an all-girls school. So there is this does happen in things other than sports. It happens in education as well, particularly during the rough puberty years.
Probably everything in has any kind of interaction like that.
Hang on, Jen, it's your stream. Do you mind?
No, you can smoke. That's fine.
Oh Lord, I didn't even ask.
I asked when I
never would have occurred to me to ask.
So on trans people in sports, or trans women in sports particularly, I have 2 points that I think are kind of interesting, relevant to make, that people often don't think of. And one is, which goes to your splitting people by weight suggestion is that any line you draw inherently has to be arbitrary. So, like weight categories in boxing, for example, it's just arbitrary. That's fine. We picked on these for tradition or whatever, but it's arbitrary. And it just happens that any line you draw between men and women, even though it's much less arbitrary in a sense, it still has to be arbitrary. So we've got this case they recently had with Caster Semenya, who's an intersex woman. She is a woman, and there's no doubt about that, and anyone saying otherwise can fuck off.
Yeah, they can...
But people still... You've got to, like, in order to split men and women into two groups, you have to draw a line on something. You have to say, like, you could draw on chromosomes, you could do it on gametes, you could do it on hormone level, anything. You've got to draw on something or a combination of things. And wherever you do, it's inherently arbitrary. And whatever line you draw, if you draw a biological line solely, you will never have all cis women included and all trans women excluded. That's not possible. You can't draw that line. You can have a go. You could get it so there's very few trans women and very few cis women excluded. But so that's an inherent issue, is whatever line you draw is going to be arbitrary, and you're never going to draw it where you get all cis women in and all trans women out. So you would have to make...
Can I...
Yeah?
Just to make an agreeing point with you. A few years back, if you looked at my blood results for hormones, you would have said I was a bloke.
Wow. Okay.
So, you know... it was a blip. It was a blip, but there was a point in my history where if you looked at my hormone results, you'd have said I was a bloke. Because my hormones were all over the shop. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. They don't mean anything. And it's entirely irrelevant.
They mean some things, but they don't necessarily. They don't mean what people say. They don't
mean what people say they mean. Look at me. Do I look like? Do I look like a cis man to you? No, I don't.
No. I can find you a identical person on Twitter who will tell you that you're a man. Give me an hour and I'll find one.
Oh, don't worry, they've already found me. I've blocked most of them.
Yeah.
That's a follow on from you, Hissy. I mean, like, for me, the old way where it was done, where it was purely done on chromosomes, depending on where they took the chromosomal test from me, I could have competed in either category. So that's just ridiculous. How does that work?
It's nonsense. Yeah. It's inherently nonsense.
I think in any of these situations, we run the risk of setting up a false dichotomy.
And it truly is. So I think that a fair and just society goes for inclusions for people, and despite the fact that tests go, oh, you're included because you can go and compete with the men if you're a trans person, no, because if you're going to talk about what's truly unfair, that is truly unfair, because we know from the tests that are done now that trans women definitely have a disadvantage. In fact, some of the results now, especially statistically, and some of the neuro experiments even suggest that trans women have a disadvantage compared to cis women in some sports.
Well, this is my other point. Sorry, I get excited. This is my other point is, just look at the statistics alone. Like, we'll just ignore the biology argument, because we've made the biology argument, and I suggest any person who wants to argue against shitheads online use this against them. If we just look at the statistics of trans women competing against cis women, trans women
underperform cis women.
Yes, like just across the board, universally, like since trans women have been able to compete in the Olympics since 2004, 0 people have even qualified. 0 trans people have qualified. So that's 0 medal
for the next Olympics.
Out of how many who've tried? Out of how many who've tried is my question.
So it's like there's roughly 10,000 people, 10,000 competitors. I got this from Google. Someone can correct me. 10,000 competitors roughly for an Olympics, and I'm talking about Summer Olympics. And you would expect, if it was in a totally fair world where trans women and cis women are equal, you would expect like 0.3% of the competitors to be trans, but 0. So they're underperforming, and it's the same with almost every sport. You could maybe pick one like roller derby or something where trans people are related.
I was just thinking that.
So they're not even qualifying on the same basis as cis women.
No, not even close. I mean, the press like to point to people like Laurel Hubbard or those track competitors in the US, but they've got to go. They've been talking about these exact same people. Even Rachel McKinnon. They've been talking about these exact same handful of people for the last 10 years. because there aren't any others to pick on. Because
The
trans
plural
people
of anecdote
underperform.
The plural of anecdote is not data, it's anecdotes, and they only ever have anecdotes. They never have the data to back it up because the data shows the opposite of what they're saying. And I think that... Oh, what was my other point? Sorry, did someone else say something?
I think it was something about cheese. Well, just to get back onto something, though, I mean, when I was playing the virtual reality sport the other night, someone noticed my avatar is very distinctly feminine, and he's like, "So are you really a girl, or are you just one of those guys who has the male avatar or female avatar?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm a girl." And then I beat him at the game, and it's a pretty vigorous game. There's a lot of ducking and dodging and weaving and throwing. And when I beat him, he was like, "My gosh, how old are you?" I was like, "Guess." He goes, 16. I'm like, no, I'm 44. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I just got my ass kicked by a 44-year-old girl," and it was the best thing I'd ever heard in my life.
So sometimes it is a compliment.
Well done. Well done.
It's always the tone of surprise, isn't it? But I just...
Thank you.
Of course, you always get those guys in the middle of the games where they go, "You're not really a girl. You can't be to be that good at the game." And I go, "The hell?"
Okay, that one's never happened to me. But then again, in the game I've been playing, there's this one girl named Scandy who kicks everyone's ass. So
It used to be the thing, though, because I used to play a lot online.
Yeah, fake gamer girls and stuff. That whole
you're a fake gamer girl. You're not really a girl. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I did a lot of EverQuest back in the day, but that was definitely a thing.
Yeah, it was definitely.
Yeah. And I learned very quickly that I did not want my avatar to be too terribly attractive, because otherwise you can't get anything done. Because the male avatars won't leave you alone.
It's amazing because there's the two aspects of that. You'll get hit on, but if you end up being any good at the game, you get accused of being a guy. I'm like, what?
I'll give you the best one. I'll tell you what I got. I played. It was a MMORPG on Steam. Based in, it's called War of the Roses, and I set myself up as an archer character because that's what I'm good at. I set myself up as an archer. Yeah. I played about 20 minutes of the game, met a couple of other players in game, as you do, playing along, and we ended up getting into a fight, and literally, you could tell the minute they realised I was actually competent. I was playing with a female avatar as an archer, and you could tell the minute they realised they were losing, because my chat stream just became pure rape threats.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
So
I had to stop playing the game after an hour and a half, because I couldn't take it anymore, because they were so vicious.
Jones, I am so sorry.
Yeah,
that's the other side of this whole gamer culture claiming women don't play, and it's the vicious side of it as well.
Actually,
the whole point is that men cannot take being beaten because they've been told their entire lives it's pure toxic masculinity. They've been told they're on top, and if they can't beat you, there's something wrong with them, and they take it personally. They cannot recognise a woman on a merit alone because they've been raised to believe that they are inherently better than women. So if a woman's better than them, it brings their masculinity into question.
In sport, which is why that a very typical shithead transphobic man thing to do is the first thing you always know they're going to do it is they'll bring up MMA straight away. Or mixed martial arts, ultimate fighting, it's called UFC.
What was her name?
Listen, let me train for 6 months. I will happily jump into a ring with a man. Give me 6 months to train, I'll happily do it. If we're at the same skill level, it doesn't care if it's a man or a woman I'm fighting.
Yeah. But what was her name anyway? The one that they like to cite because of she broke someone's jaw?
No, she fractured someone's orbital ridge.
Orbital socket, that's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Common. It's a not rare MMA injury. I know all these things because I had to argue with all these shitheads. I don't give a shit about MMA. It's a horrible sport.
And the thing that they're missing about her, and I wish I could remember her name. What the hell was her name?
Fallon.
Oh, Fallon Fox. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
What was that? Fallon Fox wasn't was always a good athlete, even before transition. She transitioned long before she entered the MMA, and when she started doing her wins in the MMA, she was competing against women who were a lot lower in capability than herself. So she was going to win. As soon as she encountered somebody who was better than her, she had her ass handed to her in that match.
Can I point something out? The Williams sisters go up against people in tennis every year who are leagues lower than them. They are by a country mile some of the best tennis players on the planet. Okay, they are not trans, they are cis women.
Yeah.
Oh, but they get
they get the accusations, they get the side comments and all the rest of it. And it's disgusting because it boils down to the fact that people cannot accept women being competent and capable.
And of course, in the U.S., it's taken to a racist place as well.
It's weird, though, because I don't know where you guys have been gaming online, but this doesn't happen in the circles I run in.
Different games.
Different games.
Yeah.
And I don't game online anymore.
The one that I have actually dealt with as a teenager, not so much now, was this weird idea that sci-fi is for boys and fantasy is for girls. Of course, there's always either one is for boys really, but girls can't like spaceships. And I was like, that's so weird. I was like, no, you have to be all princesses and knights and wizards and shit. You don't get to like totally dig on aliens and blaster guns. I'm like, what's wrong with you people? This is weird.
It's like they're watching Star Trek and not noticing that it's a little bit more egalitarian. Like
Star Wars, but yeah,
Star Wars. They're not realizing that.
I don't know. We could. Oh shit! Yeah,
let's
but
not
I mean,
fight about Star Wars and Star Trek. Well, we all know Firefly's the best.
Let's not.
There's this weird idea that like the more high tech it is, the more masculine it is. It was just bizarre to me.
Yeah, no, I've gotten the same thing, and it comes down to like in school, for example, it was perfectly acceptable to my Catholic mother, who is a lovely person. I'm not trying to throw her under the bus here, but it was perfectly acceptable to bring home a D in math. That was fine. That was fine.
Oh,
but God help me if I got an A- in English.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, because English is for girls and it's stories and it's
and also and also she was the one who taught us. She taught us all to speak, and she wanted to make damn sure that we were speaking correctly. Don't say "gonna" in front of my mother. You will have to write out "going to" 60 times.
Oh, wow.
I was raised in New England, and a lot of
being in Australia.
The letter T gets cropped out of almost everything we say. Like the capital of Vermont is not Montpelier, it's Montpelier. So if I ever say "gonna," the T was in there. It just you couldn't hear it.
Yeah, no. I'm from. Case in point, I was on this stream. I spoke once, and someone in the chat asked if I'm from Yorkshire because they picked up on my glottal stop.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah. Okay.
That is so cool. And he's from just up the road from me. He's from like less than 100 miles away, and he picked up on it immediately.
That's so badass. I love accents. Okay, not the point though.
You know, but you know what I mean. If I went 100 miles south to university, I went to the Midlands for university, and I couldn't make myself understood for the first 3 months.
I will say I was in Scotland in November.
I have noticed though that there are certain accents definitely have a masculine and feminine version of them. Like say like that sort of like New York accent, like the whole "hey, I'm walking over here." There's definitely like a masculine and feminine version of that.
Yeah.
Where with a lot of like say, oh yeah, big time. Like you're probably not gonna hear the woman going, "hey, I'm walking over here." It's gonna come out a little bit differently.
I'm sure there'd be some who do.
Well, yes, there's always exceptions. This is, like I say, climate, not the weather.
I would love to hear someone try and
say, it's a weird thing I've noticed is that because where I was raised in South Burlington, Vermont, there are definitely not masculine and feminine versions of that accent. or at least it's not as distinct as it would be with, say, like the New York thing.
The stereotypical California Valley accent. The
like the South California.
Oh my god! And then you've got the surfer dude. Those two accents, those are very gendered.
So in some languages,
but how much of that is Hollywood?
I don't know. Well, I mean, because I've only lived in California for 3.5 years now, and I haven't gotten up to the valley yet, so I haven't heard that accent for real and in person. So I can't say.
In some languages, the gendering's actually built in, and not just like French where things are gendered, but like in Thai, if you are a woman speaker, you say different words to if you're a man speaker.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not an expert in this language, but for example, I think hello is like sawadee ka or sawadee krap, and that's different. A woman and a man saying it, and it's like actually built in language.
Names in Slavic languages.
Oh, the name, for names, but like it, and I think Japanese has it as well, where there's like a masculine way, as in words choice to say.
Yeah, no, Russian has it as well.
And a
different
feminine
word endings and things. Yeah.
Imagine being trans in one of those countries.
I can't. I just trying.
There's enough problems with the expectance of cadence and stuff like that within English that that is an issue for a lot of trans people.
Absolutely.
But I imagine having to totally relearn the way you use your language would just that'd be a nightmare.
No, it's so disturbing because like when I was an English teacher, I could tell if a student who was a guy and identified as a guy turned in a paper and there was a lot of passive voice in it and a lot of some other things that are just
Mum wrote that for you.
Yeah, well, or his girlfriend wrote it for him. Yeah. And it's like I could tell them that, and I would say, hey, so what lady helped you on this paper?
No.
And the look on their faces was just like, what? How did you know? I'm like, I'm not fucking psychic, dude. There's different ways that we write, and it sucks because women do tend to write in the passive voice more in English, which is unfortunate because passive voice is lame.
I have to say, because I've been writing academically recently, I make a point. Whenever I write anything, especially academic, I go through and I proofread specifically for passive voice.
Yeah, good. Because my one of my favorite English teachers went through and pointed this out to me when I was in 10th grade, which would have been right before college for you Brits and Australians. So it was she let me know, hey, you're doing this, stop doing it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. That's fine.
I didn't realize I was doing it until I tried a popular proofreading app / extension that I won't name. But you've probably all seen the adverts. I didn't realize how bad it was. But I was at the point when I first started with that, 20% of all my work was in passive voice, and I've got it down to 3 or 4%, which is in academic writing that's reasonable because some of it's going to be passive because of the nature of the way you're writing.
Yeah, it's the same in technical writing, which is what I do for a living now. So yeah, sometimes I have to write in the passive voice, and I feel it feels wrong, but I have to do it. So
it's funny because I've never really considered that difference. I had to go look it up and figure it out just now what it was because I'd never really heard that term before. And looking at examples of passive voice and active voice, I honestly have no idea which one I use.
Yeah, it has to do with who is doing the action. So it has to do with the subject of the sentence. Is the subject that's doing the verb, that came out weird, but you get the idea. The subject that is acting, is that a human being or not?
Right.
Yeah, is that a person? Because when you're writing an academic paper or you're writing a technical manual, you're writing in the third person anyway. So you're not saying, I shut off this valve at this time. You're saying shut off the valve at this time. So it's the imperative, and that is active voice. But if you say the engine shuts off at this time, that's passive voice because the engine is shutting down, and it suggests that it's shutting down on its own, like it's automated. Because an engine,
you would have to write that anyway.
But I mean, looking at the examples that I looked at, I'm like, I think I might switch back and forth between the two, and
most people do.
Yeah, most people do. And honestly, to answer Jen's question about technical writing, sometimes you have to because it is an automated process. and my audience is the field tech out there working on it. So they need to know if it's something that just happens or if it's something that they need to do. So that's the difference.
Goodness knows that there have been times I've looked for the instructions on how to do something, and the way it's written makes absolutely zero sense.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Because they don't distinguish between active and passive.
You're right.
So I'm not sure, is this something I'm supposed to be doing, or will it just happen on its own?
Yeah.
They don't make it clear at all.
People call Romans, they go the house. You know, it's that.
Yeah.
I've got to make that comment, haven't I?
So what is considered the balance for active and passive that people should actually be using, Jolly? I mean,
gosh.
I mean, I realise that for women generally we write more passive and men write more active.
If you want to be persuasive, write active.
Yeah, and
if you are trying to make a point, don't be passive about it.
No, Hissy's right there, and also, it's not a sex thing; it's a gender thing. Like people who are depending on where they are on the gender spectrum, might tend to speak and or write more passively or more aggressively. It sounds weird to say it's aggressive. It's just saying what you need or want or whatever. But
it's weird because anybody who watches a lot of my videos would say, "Oh, Jen's very active." But if you actually talk to me privately in real life, I'm more passive.
Right? And living in the South. Oh, sorry.
Well, that brings to mind, like, if a child has done something wrong, say they've, like, I don't know, thrown a ball in a place they shouldn't have or something, usually, what is it, like, the dad will say, "Don't throw the ball in the house," and the mom would say, "Now, is throwing the ball in the house such a good idea? Is that what I told you to do?" Would you say, like, that's the difference between active and passive?
It's more, the adult
just grammatically, it's not. I get what you're saying. But
so for that particular situation, it's the kid saying that it's the kid admitting, "I threw the ball," or "the ball landed over there."
Yeah, the ball knocked over the vase, Mom. I didn't do it. That would be the ball knocked over the vase. That would be passive voice, like because they're applying agency to something that can't have agency.
That's active.
Yeah.
But
I get what you're saying, though.
I could talk about things all goddamn day, so.
No. I like what you said, though, because, like, as opposed to saying, like, wait till your father gets home, I really like that notion of any parent saying, okay, what did we talk about throwing things inside the house? Because that's teaching a child how to think and not what to think. Like, that's teaching them to remember and go back and go, okay, well, maybe I don't want to throw the ball in the house because it might break something, and it might hurt someone's feelings.
It's application and it's critical thinking on a very simple level.
When an adult would start saying something like that to me, I always felt like I was being condescended to. Like, did you remember what we discussed? And it'd be like, at that point, I'd be tempted to rebel and start going, "No, what did we discuss?" You know,
I've done that.
It's a good thing to learn. Like, oh God, I better not break the vase, otherwise they're going to condescend me. Like, I can't be bothered with that. So
I don't know.
I'm going to interrupt and just say, how are our two British panelists handling? Because I know it's heading on towards 2 a.m. for you guys. So.
Oh yeah.
What are you talking about? It's nice and bright and daylight out there behind her.
I know, the sunlight. The sun hasn't even set for me.
Is she in Greece there? No.
I have energy, but I could flag.
That is not Humber Bridge behind you. You're not. East Yorkshire has never been that sunny.
No, but isn't Bad Kingdom Brew now?
Okay.
Or something.
Fair enough.
I have no idea what
it's not Humber Bridge.
We're talking about location in England and a bridge.
That's why. I've only been to Scotland and one city there, so I don't know.
Bristol is in the southwest. It's next to Wales. It's really pretty. It's got this mega suspension bridge, which you can see.
I wasn't driving, but I was in the car. So.
Yeah, there is no major icon I can point to in my hometown and say, "Oh, that's pretty."
What's your hometown?
Now, if you weren't covered in soot and filth and 200 years of industrialisation, that's your town. But nah.
Which town?
Bradford.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So if you guys are still, I think we still got conversation
with me and then
happening
just
here.
nothing.
So if our
I'm a southerner. I eat quiche instead of pies, so...
So
Okay,
if two British analysts are up to it, I'm happy to keep going for a little while. But if you guys are needing sleep, then we'll...
Are you talking 10 minutes, half an hour, 4 hours?
I'm thinking we can finish at the hour. So
yeah, that's fine.
I can make it to the hour, no problem.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Sure.
And so that way at least we can finish where we're at now, and then we can wind up with people shilling themselves out.
Yeah, and also thank you both for that. I appreciate it because it's so much later where you are. It's only like it's only like 6:30 here, so it's not bad.
1:30 in the morning. I'm not.
Actually, come to think, if we stop at the top of the hour, that's perfect because it's time to feed the cats.
Oh, kitty.
All right, you were going to say something?
Okay, who's going to make the crazy cat lady joke?
I'm not.
She only has
I fucking love
two.
cats.
If anyone here is a crazy cat lady, it's me. I've got 5 of them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The lesbians and cats jokes. There's a joke in there somewhere.
I had cats my
I've got lots of
entire adult
I'm
life,
just teasing,
and
I'm
I
honestly
became
teasing because
allergic
it's
a year
such a
ago. I'm 42, and I became allergic to cats a year ago. It sucks.
I'm allergic to cats, but I've got a cat because it's worth it.
Oh, yeah, you're better than I am.
Adorable.
I know.
I live on the 4th floor. Occasionally, I borrow my dad's dog, and that's about it.
Mm.
So you were saying before Katie when I interrupted.
Yeah, I was going to say, earlier you mentioned about like what grades your parents would accept to do with maths and English. So I think I directly remember maybe even more than one of my teachers saying to me, like, boys are good at maths, girls are good at English. I just remember.
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah, my parents were definitely that generation.
Specific anecdote that I'm perfectly happy to share, but I'm not going to give the teacher's name. It's not fair on him. He's an old fella. He meant well. I was 16 studying my GCSEs at an all-girls Catholic school. I was in the top 1% for physics in, like, West Yorkshire. Some of the few girls who didn't go to private school who were taking 3 sciences at GCSE. And when I said to him I want to do physics at A-level in uni, he looked at me and said, "Don't bother, you'll never get a job in the field as a woman. You're too black and too female."
Yes.
Well, actually, here, if you were a woman doing physics here, Kate, let me know if this is incorrect where you are. But you actually might have a leg up as a woman because there are so few women doing hard sciences in the States.
But what happened, he was my teacher. He taught us all. In the all-girls school, I was pulling straight A's in physics. I went to a co-ed for college, 6th form college, and my grade dropped from that straight A to an E. I barely passed.
Wow.
Because the teacher had no interest. I was one of only 3 females in that AS class. One of us carried it on to A2 level.
I will say this, I don't know about physics, but I do know what it's like being the token female at a video game company.
Yeah.
Been there.
Do it.
And actually it wasn't all that bad, but I was in Seattle. It might be a lot worse in other places, I don't know, but still, it's definitely a bit of a sausage fest industry, the video games industry.
Yeah, I'm a decorator, so I work with engineers when I'm working. I'm furloughed right now. But I work with engineers, and there's literally like maybe 2 women who are actually engineers.
I'm an engineer and a woman. And
I'm a historian, and my undergrad course was about 70-30 male to female ratio-ish.
There was 5 women and like 120 men.
Yeah, but then I went into classics for my master's. Classics is a sausage fest, and it's not just a sausage fest, it's a rich sausage fest.
I am surprised by that.
My computer science degree, there were
there are women,
2 women in the
that
class,
are highlighted, but they're still not.
I'm sorry, I was listening to Jen and then
sorry. But it's mostly men. It's still very elitist.
And it increases as you specialize more. That kind of thing does increase, absolutely, because something that I noticed, during my when I was got my MFA in 2004. So this is years and years and years ago. But there were more men in linguistics than women in the English department at my university, and there were more women in creative writing than men.
Yeah, in my college, girls
that
took
was the
literature, boys took language.
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
it is because because these are guys who like excelled at English, right? And so they were great, but it's interesting where it branched off.
I mean, there's too much social pressure in it. So
yeah, I think so.
I was going to say from the school thing, like perhaps a different perspective to what you had was like I'm naturally good at maths and I'm naturally good at art, and I guess they're my two like innate talents. And
Nice.
I remember when I was doing well in both of them in primary school, which is like the first school we go to, and then again at secondary school. And I just remember all of my teachers really pushing me towards maths and away from art. And when I got to A level, it was the same. They're like, so I went in and said which A levels I wanted to do, and I said maths, physics, electronics, and art. And they were like, don't take art. It takes away from you can get a good job, like. And obviously at that time I wasn't out, and they were just really pushing me to do maths.
Did you take design technology instead?
No, I did actually force them. I forced into doing art, and I enjoyed art.
I remember when I went for my sixth form interview, I was active. I wanted English, history, maths, and physics because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and everyone had the same reaction when I named those 4 subjects. That's a bit broad, isn't it? No. I'm spreading my legs because I'm 16 and I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, no, I think you did the right thing. I mean, for me, my tops are anything science, maths, and English. For me, except for my struggles in English were the same as yours, Hissy, because of dyslexia. So
but then I ended up as a historian writing, 6,000-7,000 word essays. Just off the cuff, and it's
I mean, I did English literature as well, and I did business communications when I was in
same.
Intake, so.
I have quite moderate. My dyslexia class is moderate. If I can get through a novel a week for English literature, anyone can do it, and it's not gendered.
No, it's not. It definitely isn't.
But
Literature.
I watched my literature student bully boys in the class.
I'm sorry. Kate, what were you going to say?
I was saying that the big problem I always had with the literature that they tried to force on us in school is that it was boring. Really intensely, deeply boring stuff. And I mean, it wasn't even necessarily how it was written. It's just, I don't need to hear about like industrial age England or Mark Twain times or whatever, the Great Gatsby. I wanted my spaceships and dragons and shit, And
I told the Caulfield had been a girl, that book would have bombed.
One class where they let us read Lord of the Rings, and that was it. And I was just like, this is so, why can't, surely there is well-written, great literature out there where the subject matter isn't dull as dishwater. Surely that must exist, but apparently in school, no, forget about it.
I fear that a lot of people are turned off from reading because of the kind of curriculum in the public school system that we have here. It does include a lot of, it's like you don't get to cool stuff like No Telephone to Heaven or
Stranger in a Strange Land.
Stranger in a Strange Land, yeah, or anything, like authors of color you almost don't get in the public school.
Started on the argument I had before I was allowed to read Colour Purple.
Who are authors of color and I don't even know it.
We can Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And I think that's great because, like I say, we should be making our differences unremarkable when it comes to things like that. I'm sure there must be an author out there I absolutely adore who is not in any way like cis-het white.
No,
there's gotta be.
I'm probably the oldest person on this panel, and I did Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as one of my books when I did English literature.
I argued with my literature tutor about whether I could do The Godfather.
My friend Alan and I went to our AP English teacher for the summer before we started the class senior year, and said, "Hey, we heard that Don Quixote used to be on the summer reading list." And she said, "Yes, but no one ever read it, so I took it off." And we said, "Can we?" And she said, "Yeah, you may, if you wish." So we got to read Don Quixote with obviously English translation, but that doesn't really, actually, that does not add to this. But it was so great to get to read Don Quixote.
No,
I actually tried once a long ass time ago to try to write a novel entirely in limerick form. The problem is that after a while, the same rhythm, the same cadence starts to get really annoying.
Imagine it starts to drill into your brain while you're sleeping and like wake up.
Yeah. It's really hard to I don't know. I actually did write a limerick about it. Now I can't. Oh no, here it is. I tried to limerick a novel while sitting at home in my hovel. The repeated meter made my sanity teeter, and that's why I thought it was awful.
What was the most boring book that you had to study? Because for me,
the most boring book?
Yeah.
Tessa D'Urberville's.
Yeah, Tessa the D'Urberville's up there, but I don't find it the most boring.
Tessa's alright.
Mine was Great Expectations, and it's not because it was the most boring, it's because we spent an entire fucking semester on it, and I had to write 6 papers on it, and by the end of it,
horrible.
I threw the goddamn book away, and that is the only book I've ever thrown out in the trash.
Cormac
That's what's so
McCarthy
weird
or
about
the
it.
Kidding Horses.
I did one that I
I
hated.
had to read the Spark Notes. I couldn't get through it. It was horrendous.
Well, I've
We
already
had to
mentioned The
do.
Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby was awful.
I loved The Great Gatsby. I mean, it's terribly
so dull.
sexist, but I loved
I
it.
learned to appreciate
dull.
The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, we had to do One Day in the Life of Ivan Danilovich. And
Oh.
it's going to be one of the most boring books you could ever read. It is
I haven't
literally
done that.
I read
one day
the Catcher in
in
the
the life
Rye.
of a guy who's in a Russian gulag. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it is the most boring book ever. I get the point of it, but, you know, when you're a teenager, you don't want to read that shit. And it was so boring. And it's the first time in my life I've ever burned a book. Because it was so bad.
As a teenager, I sat on the couch
Ooh.
for hours, days at a time, just absorbed in books. But I would still get really low grades in English class because I refused to read the dreck and drivel they would force on me.
I mean, I was reading Shakespeare in year 7 when they had us reading frigging Jane Eyre. I'd read that when I was 8. You know, keep up.
Isn't Wuthering Heights a dreadful book?
Okay, and you know, I've seen a lot of heights. I've never seen one wuthering, ever.
Wuthering Heights is dismal if you look at it from a
It is.
from a
It's
different
got
point.
no
in the
redeeming
room.
features.
I'm sorry.
None.
I
No.
need to ask this question. Were you made to read Michael Frayn's Spies?
No,
I have
I don't
never
even know what
read
that is.
a horrific book in my life. Well, actually, I have my 3 words books of Michael Frayn's Spies, Catcher in the Rye, and All the Pretty Horses.
What? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
not
where
a
we
fan of
diverge.
Catcher in the
Because
Rye,
I
I'm
fucking
sorry.
love Catcher in the Rye. I didn't read it until I was an adult. Maybe that's the difference, but I love it.
I can't stand it. I think he's a whiny, pathetic little dirtbag. And if he was a girl, the book would have never been written.
You know, I could probably
Strong opinion from Hissy there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful book. He wanted to protect everyone from the he wanted to protect children from the bullshit he lived with his whole life.
Well, let's have
We
an
must have read
opinion on
different
an
books.
author that we can all agree. J.K. Rowling is a
J.K.
dirtbag.
Rowling is the turf.
J.K. Rowling is a dirtbag who wrote some really fun books. I hate that she's a turf. What the fuck, J.K. Rowling?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You wrote a book in which it's possible to swap genders by taking a potion. And you're a turf.
Yeah.
The sort of
you.
thing happens to me all the time with bands, where I'll find a punk band I absolutely adore, and then I look them up and find out they're all skinheads. And what is it about skinheads and Nazis making damn good punk music? I hate that.
Me
Same
too.
with-
It's all aggressive and violent, isn't it?
But no, I'm with you on J.K. Rowling.
You
Just-
should listen to Katie's music, Bionic Dance.
Oh,
Oh, Katie does music. I did not know.
I've actually got a album coming out soon. If anyone's interested, it's going to be a mix of thrash metal, death metal, doom metal, and swing, which I think will be exciting.
seems an odd combo, but okay.
It does, but I'm here for
She
it.
is an amazing guitarist. The links to everybody's channels is in the description, but Katie's got some videos on her channel of her playing guitar, and she is amazing.
Well, speaking as someone who absolutely loves metal covers of Finnish drinking songs and Viking sea shanties.
I'm listening.
Okay, I might enjoy whatever it is that you're talking about here.
I'm going to send you a Spotify playlist of my drinking metal songs, which you might appreciate.
Okay. I spent a lot of time in this one Irish pub in Seattle and developed a taste for Irish drinking songs.
Was it an actual Irish pub, or did it just have Guinness on tap?
No, it was called Kells, and like the bands that would show up were people who, if not actually from Ireland, had a lot of Irish ancestry. And but anyway, point being that when I got into that, I found the Dropkick Murphys, and I was fine. So
I'm a fan of the Dropkick Murphys.
Dropkick Murphys are really funny because when they sing with a really strong Irish accent, and when they talk, they're really American.
Yeah, they're really American. Yes, absolutely. That is what we do here. We're all mutts, and we just sort of identify with whatever had the most impact on us growing up, essentially.
The Pogues, then. I love the Pogues.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
We've got 5 minutes to the hour, and I want everyone to have a chance to shield themselves a bit. So I think we'll start with Julie.
Okay, hi, I'm Julie LaVoice. That's at JLaVoice on Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel called Julie LaVoice Wine and Reason. That's with an ampersand, but if you see it on Twitter, it's with the word "and" because Twitter doesn't like the ampersand. Doesn't like the ligature. It says that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen. The links are in the description. And last night, Junk Shop and I did we did an analysis of the Yellow Wallpaper, but I also talk about feminism, reproductive rights a lot because they're really in jeopardy here in the U.S. right now, and all the other stuff that comes along that I need to scream into the void. Also, of course, atheism and so on and so forth. That's it.
Yeah, and LGBTQ issues as well.
Thank you. And LGBT.
That's a big part of your life.
I forget I'm queer sometimes.
Well, not only queer, you've got a non-binary partner. So
I do, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Hissy.
Hey, I'm Danger Hissy on YouTube, Twitter, everywhere you find me. My YouTube channel is Hissy's Hideaway. Too many cigarettes tonight. I am a historian, classicist, quite political. I do a weekly-ish stream with Godless Scummer on where we deconstruct, enjoy, fangirl, fanboy over Asterix the Gaul comics. Me from a historical point of view, him because he has nostalgia, so that's quite fun. Occasionally I pop up on streams my husband
I thought you were going to say him because he's got no style.
Nostalgia. He's got style. He's all right. Don't knock him.
Oh, and we play D&D together.
Yeah, we play D&D together, Julie and I. I'm looking at. I think I'm going to end up going sort of in historical debunking style, classical reception type of thing going on. Speaking of, it is the 20th anniversary of Gladiator tonight, and we were entertained.
It's so weird.
I have to say that. We were entertained. That's why we know it's the 20th anniversary. So I also write fan fiction. So if you find my fan fiction, dead dove do not eat. Seriously, read the damn warnings, please. I write slash, and I write it explicit, and I write it cuddly and cute and fluffy and everything.
Have you written slash for Harry Potter?
Snarry is my OTP. Fight me, bitch. And listen, I've defended my ship on Tumblr. Do not come at me. So yeah, I write fan fiction. I'm, various bits going on there. My channel's still new. I haven't quite found my niche, found what I'm doing yet. I'm just sort of still got feelers out there, giving it a go. Ring and I started doing a breakdown of the Story Keepers. I don't know what we did, but YouTube made me shut up. They stopped the stream. It was my fault, I'm sure.
And you're usually on Media Musings as well if you're not working.
Yeah, if I'm on Media Musings and they're not talking about Star Trek, I tend to be on there.
Yeah.
Not Star Trek.
I
Star
still
Wars.
love you.
So yeah,
Either way.
I'm a Trekkie. I'm not Star Wars. I'm a Trekkie.
Oh, no,
you can be
no,
both.
we're not
You
fighting.
can be-
we're
I
not
know
fighting.
it's a post-nerd world, but I can't do with Star Wars. I just can't.
Okay, you're fired. Leave. Just leave. You know.
But yeah, Opera's yodeling for snooty people. Change my mind. No, I'm not changing your mind. It's true. But I do like my classics. You know, so you'll find a lot of that going on there. I'm currently, fingers crossed for me, you know, everything crossed. I'm waiting for the result of my dissertation.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't end in pregnancy.
Your dissertation looks
Good
so
luck
good.
having dissertation.
Oh!
Yeah, but pregnancy test takes 30 seconds. This is going to take 2 months. So, yeah. Lot going on at the moment. We'll see how it goes. I swear, smoke, and drink on streams. Again, if you don't like it, you don't have to listen to me, but that's it. That's who I am.
Fair.
You know, as I said, someone picked me out as a Yorkshire lass within 30 seconds of me opening my trap.
We
Can't
should
be
call you
helped.
the
It is who I
historian
am.
of the mouth.
I like it.
It's Danger Hissy for a reason.
Yep. Alright,
So yeah,
cool. Thanks.
cool.
Thanks, Becca. Bionic Dance, Kate.
Yes.
What you got
Well,
happening?
that is. Well, right now, for those of you who don't know, and gosh, who are you? I make YouTube videos explaining to religious people exactly why they're wrong, because
And
they
you
so
do a good
frequently
job
are.
of it.
Oh, shucks. But at heart, I'm an animator and a storyteller. I love my sci-fi and, to a lesser degree, my fantasy. And so I've got a few projects in the works, and I've made so many, like I've started so many projects and finished so very few of them. But I'm working on some stuff, so I do actually need to recast part of an animation I'm working on. So if anyone out there in YouTube land wants to voice a character and has acting ability, talk to me. I may have a part for you. We'll see. So there's that. But mostly it's the usual, just finding religious videos out there and debunking them. Actually, this coming Monday, I will be doing a live stream with Mama Atheist debunking Billy Lane Craig.
Ooh,
Nice. That'll be cool.
yes. Yes.
And you put out a
Look forward
video
to
a few
that.
days ago where you debunked an idiot who had no idea about LGBTQ plus people.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really good video. If anyone wants to go and check that out, who's in the LGBTQ plus community, Kate did a marvelous. Yeah, I'm trying to put two words together at once. I haven't had enough sleep. An amazing job with that video.
My most recent video, a guy, like, his whole argument was, well, if the Bible's true, then this, and this. And I'm like, you do realize that's a big old honkin' if, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty big fucking F.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazingly big.
So, that's the kind of thing I handle. And I have a good time doing it, too. So I hope you have a good time watching it.
If
Cool. And last but by no means least, Katie.
Sorry, had a technical difficulty involving gravity.
gravity hits me.
I'm at Katie Montgomery on Twitter, and I argue with dickheads about LGBT rights and feminism, as in I'm pro both. And I also deliver high quality insect facts, talk about thrash metal, and try and stamp out mayonnaise from the world. And I'm just pivoting right now into YouTube. So I've got a few videos and I've got some ideas coming up. So I'm also Katie Montgomery on YouTube.
Oh, Katie, can't wait. I'm so going to follow you.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
the second we're off
Everyone
this,
should
that's
follow Katie
amazing.
on Twitter. It is hilarious to watch her take down a turf or somebody like that. I don't know how you remember off the top of your head all the things that they've said a few days before and then bring it back up and rub it in their face. It's just amazing to watch.
Moment where someone makes a logical assertion and then I keep asking them questions and saying things and talking to, and then days, hours, whatever later, they'll say something else, which is the direct logical contradiction of their original statement, and I'll link it back to them. Oh, it's so good!
It is. It's
That's
amazing.
so good.
It's amazing to watch. But yeah. No. If you're still watching the stream now, because we are 2 hours in now, go and sub and follow these lovely ladies. They are absolutely amazing. 4 of my most favourite people on the internet. And I mean, I've got lots of favourites, but these are 4 of my most favourites. So.
And of course, if you don't, we'll find you and string you up by the larger of your testicles.
You would string people up, wouldn't you, Kate? As for me, people, I'm appearing on Vandalia's stream tomorrow. Yes, it will be tomorrow for most of you. That's at I believe 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm gonna have another night with no sleep probably. I've got a video coming out which will be about odd problems in maths. If anybody was watching my Twitter, I posted one the other day about which planet on average is closest to all the other planets in.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so I'm going to be.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
Yes, the answer is Mercury. Yes.
I thought it was Mercury, but I was just guessing.
See, when
I'm not going to explain now why that is the case, but I will be in my video. And there's a few other problems like that that are really interesting and things that you learn when you do maths and stuff like that, and especially when you do physics and stuff. So
when you posted that I saw that post, and what popped into my head instantly was the Animaniacs song. You know, the closest to the sun is the planet Mercury. Next is that one. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Kate.
Okay.
See, you've just said Animaniacs, and my brain's just gone United States, Canada, Mexico, Canada, head.
Don't get me started. Oh my God. I will do that whole song right here, right now, if you want me to.
I don't think the Universe song is as good as Monty Python's, though.
Oh, that one is good.
But I mean, I know Monty Python's, but it's a great big universe, and we're all really puny. We're just tiny little specks about the size of Mickey Rooney. That one.
Yeah, that's the Animaniacs version. If you want to see a really good version of the Monty Python one and not actually watch Monty Python, Brian Cox and
Tim Minchin.
Thank you. I can't believe I've forgotten his name.
Dude, that's how I ended up in Scotland. He was doing a concert there, and he'd come back to my hemisphere from Australia, and I was like, well, fuck, this might be our last chance. Yeah, let's go to Scotland and see
Tim actually recently released a new song, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It is a beautiful, beautiful ballad, and I love when he actually does a semi-serious song, and it's one of his ballads, but people should check that out. I think I posted it a couple of days ago. So yeah, I've got that. We are starting our Star Wars month on Ring Stream on Sunday morning in the US, Sunday night for me. So that'll be.
Is that May the 4th?
Yeah. Well, it's not May the 4th. Then it's the day before, isn't it? Because that'll be the 3rd. But it's the closest day to May the 4th that we're actually we stream the media Ring streams Media Musings. Generally speaking, as far as invites to that go, it's whoever's available. So if anybody wants to join in for that as a discussion on Star Wars, I believe we're starting with the original trilogy, and we're going to do them in the order they were released. So.
Well, apparently I have an open invitation to that stream, but you are welcome to it during May.
Yeah. So anyone in the thing who's a content creator who wants to put their all in about Star Wars, feel free for that. I will send links to people. Yeah, Kate does.
Someone with.
Yeah, I know. And both Kates, I think, would be interested in that.
Kate, I was already
This is why I talk a lot of Harry Potter.
I was already jealous of Kate's The Last Starfighter tattoo, and now I'm like, dude. Yeah. I know, it's fucking awesome.
And he says you're doing
Katie's background is fucking awesome.
But I mean, I do have the circuitry.
That was
going
great.
on. So, I mean, it's not actually from Tron. It's my own design, but still.
That's even better. Tron was the first movie I owned. I got it as a birthday present on VHS for my 8th birthday. So that was huge.
Oh, and as long as we've been talking about the topic, because we talked about it a lot, the composer for the score for Tron is trans.
That's amazing.
Wendy Carlos.
Which Tron?
Wendy Carlos is a trans woman who composed the music for Tron.
Oh,
I don't know why that makes me so happy,
She's
but it
actually
does.
done interviews. She did an interview talking about how to compose music for movies. It was absolutely brilliant. She's absolutely gorgeous, actually. So, it's on YouTube. So if people want to search it up, you can watch interview with Wendy Carlos. So,
It says Media Musings is in order of release: OT, prequels, Disney Expanded Universe, and then Jen runs a game.
yeah, I'm running a game where we're going to be doing playing Star Wars, but with D&D 5th edition rules.
Huh.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
That should be fun. A lot of fun. I'm hoping to
So, did
borrow
the little-
Jay's Zoom so we can have more than 6 people playing.
I would very much like to participate.
So did the whiny kid crit on his attack roll when he shot the thing into the ship and made it go boom? This is how much I know about Star Wars.
I don't recognize the whiny kid as existing.
It's like when Paul Atreides
about Luke.
practice with.
No, I don't. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was.
No, sorry, Kate. No, I interrupted you.
No. I was making a bad joke, mixing up different sci-fi and acting like they were the same one. Don't worry about it.
Well,
Yeah, that's
I
how
assumed,
now you know why I'm not a Media Musings.
I assumed that Hissy was talking about Anakin and the prequels. Little blonde
Actually, I
kid.
thought you were
No,
talking about
the
the
big
Greek
ship.
and the-
The big ship, the murder ship. He
That's not-
fired into the murder ship. And went
Oh
boom.
my gosh, the murder ship!
The murder ship. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's
Right.
No.
Jen, you should take us out, darling.
Okay.
Yeah,
weird.
One last thing I will throw out there is I did an interview with Godless Granny the other day about in response to Answers in Genesis, who've put out a whole heap of articles recently trashing trans people. She wanted input from a trans person. She's actually looking at doing a few more, so it might be something worth putting your hand up for, Katie. Because
Please.
Because your voice is very important. And
Yes. And bigotry couched in religion is bullshit.
if you want to see me
sorry.
trying not to swear, I do it a lot. In that she actually had to bleep me a few times because she doesn't have something on her channel.
Well, actually, like trying not to. I'd rather see you fail trying to not. I'll just be over here.
You're fine.
So anyway, thank you all for watching and being part of this, especially those of you who stuck out the whole 2 hours. We have had an awful lot of fun here. Well, at least I have, and I assume everyone else has. And we will all catch you on the next one. And please subscribe to everybody here because these ladies are absolutely lovely. And bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Don't get run over.
No.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, be careful.
Bye.